The sound of my mother's scream sliced through the hallway of my apartment building like a knife through silk. It wasn't the scream of someone who'd seen a spider or stubbed their toe, it was the wail of a woman whose world was crumbling beneath her feet. And I was responsible. The note I'd taped to my door had done its job. I told you I wasn't available to babysit the kids. I'm at a ski resort in the mountains with my friends until next Sunday. I'm tired of being your reliable babysitter and free help whenever you need it. I'm done being treated like my life doesn't matter. From today forward, I'm cutting off all contact with this family. Those words, scrawled in my shaky handwriting just hours before, had just confronted my sister and mother as they stood outside my apartment, 3 confused children in pajamas with suitcases at their sides, ready to be dropped off for a week while the adults jetted off to Hawaii. This is how I became the family scapegoat for 30 years, and how one Christmas dinner finally pushed me to do something I never thought I'd have the courage to do, walk away from everyone I'd ever loved, even when it meant leaving 3 confused children standing outside my empty apartment. I'm Charlotte Miller, and this decision cost me everything. But it also saved my life. The breaking point came at Christmas dinner, but the cracks had been forming since I was a child. I'd always been the youngest of 3 girls, the afterthought, the spare, the one whose needs came last. Caroline was the golden child, Lisa was the peacemaker, and I was convenient. A built-in babysitter. Free labor. The family utility player. Now, at 30 years old, I'd built a successful freelance accounting business from my small 1-bedroom apartment. Most people would call that a success story. My family? They acted like I was basically unemployed. I don't understand this computer nonsense, my father had said just weeks before that fateful Christmas, his voice carrying that familiar dismissal I'd grown up with. We were having Sunday dinner at my parents' house, and I'd made the mistake of mentioning a challenging project I was proud of completing. A real worker goes to an office at 8 in the morning and comes home at 6 at night. That's how it should be. I remember how the words hit me in the chest, pushing the air from my lungs. I'd been managing complex financial accounts for clients who actually valued my expertise, who paid me well for it. But to my own father, I was just playing around on a computer all day. I'd smiled tightly and changed the subject, swallowing my hurt like I always did. It was easier that way. 30 years of practice makes you good at hiding pain. My older sisters had the lives everyone expected. Caroline was 37 with 2 kids aged 9 and 10. Lisa was 33 with a 7-year-old son named Cody. Both were married, both living in picture-perfect suburban houses with soccer schedules and PTA meetings. They were the success stories, the daughters who did everything right. Then there was me. Single. Childless. Working from home. In their eyes, I was the sister who never quite figured it out, never quite became a real adult. And somehow, that made me available for everything, every weekend babysitting request, every last-minute emergency, every time they needed someone else to handle their responsibilities. Being the youngest meant getting everyone's leftovers. Hand-me-down clothes that were already out of style, outdated phones when my sisters upgraded, furniture nobody else wanted anymore. When I turned 16 and got my first job at a local store, I thought I could finally buy something new, something just for me. I'd come home from my first shift, my feet aching but my heart soaring with the knowledge that I'd earned my own money. I was making plans for a new pair of shoes, ones that hadn't been worn by both my sisters first, when my mother cornered me in the kitchen. "You need to give us half your paycheck," she announced without any discussion. "Caroline needs help with her wedding expenses." I remember standing there, the cold tile of the kitchen floor beneath my feet, feeling like I'd been slapped. Half of my minimum wage earnings to help my 23-year-old sister who had her own job. But I did it, because that's what you do in families like mine. You shut up and sacrifice for the greater good. Fast forward 14 years, and I was still sacrificing. Every weekend, there was some excuse to dump the kids on me. Lisa wanted date night with her husband. Caroline needed a mental health break. The children needed somewhere to stay while the adults had fun. "It's just for the weekend, Charlotte," Lisa always said, her voice carrying that particular tone that suggested I should be grateful for the opportunity. The kids love spending time with their aunt. Sure, they loved me. But they were loud, demanding children who needed constant attention, wanted to eat every 2 hours, and expected me to entertain them while I tried to work. My apartment was tiny, just one bedroom and a small office space. When they stayed over, I slept on an air mattress in my office while they completely took over my bedroom. The worst part wasn't even the inconvenience. It was how my parents treated me like I should be honored by this arrangement. "Your sisters work so hard," my mother would say, her voice dripping with approval for Caroline and Lisa. "You should appreciate that they trust you with their children." Trust? They didn't have a choice when free babysitting is free babysitting. This Christmas, I had finally made other plans. Real plans that were just for me. My friends Ashley, Amy, and Alex had booked a week at a ski resort in the mountains. We'd been talking about it for months, a real vacation where I could actually relax, ski, spend time with people my own age, and not worry about anyone else's schedule or needs. I started working extra hours to ensure all my client projects would be completed before I left. I bought a new ski suit, proper winter gear, equipment I'd never owned because I'd never had the chance to use it. For the first time in years, I was buying something just for me, something connected to my own dreams and plans. But I was nervous about telling my family. I knew they wouldn't understand why someone who just works from home would need a vacation. Still, this time was going to be different. This time, I was going to stand up for myself. December 24th arrived, and like every year, we gathered for Christmas dinner at my parents' house. I drove over with a car full of presents I'd carefully selected and wrapped for everyone, my stomach in knots about the moment I'd tell them about my trip. The moment I walked in, something felt off. "Where is everyone?" I asked my mother, who was methodically placing ornaments on the tree. "Oh, you know your sisters," she replied without looking up. "They'll be here eventually." Eventually turned into 3 hours. Caroline finally arrived with her husband Connor and their 2 children, followed by Lisa with her husband Brian and young Cody. The kids immediately transformed the house into chaos, running, screaming, playing, demanding attention from every adult in the room. We finally sat down for dinner, and the conversation followed its predictable pattern. Caroline complained about office drama while scrolling through her phone. Lisa discussed PTA politics while cutting Cody's food into small pieces. My parents chatted with the brothers-in-law about sports. I sat there, picking at my food, waiting for the right moment to share my news about the ski trip. "So, Charlotte," Caroline said suddenly, not bothering to look up from her screen. "How's the typing going?" "Typing." She reduced my entire career to typing. "It's going well," I replied, taking a deep breath. Actually, I wanted to tell everyone something important. But she wasn't listening. None of them ever listened. Caroline continued texting, Lisa kept fussing over Cody, and my parents remained absorbed in their conversation with Connor about football statistics. I tried again, raising my voice slightly. "I have some news about my holiday plans." That's when Caroline's head snapped up, her face lighting up with that brilliant smile that should have been my first warning. "Oh, that's perfect timing," she exclaimed, her voice cutting through all the other conversations. "I was just about to tell you, we're all flying to Hawaii tomorrow morning." The room erupted in excited chatter. My mother clapped her hands together like a delighted child. My father grinned and nodded approvingly at Connor. Lisa practically squealed with excitement, bouncing slightly in her chair. They all knew. Every single person at that table except me had been planning this Hawaii vacation, discussing it, booking flights and hotels. I was the only one completely in the dark. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. The realization hit me like a physical blow. They'd planned this entire family vacation without including me, without even mentioning it. Yes, me and Connor, Lisa and Brian, Mom and Dad, we're all going for a full week, Caroline continued, her enthusiasm building with each word. The flights are booked, the hotel is paid for, it's going to be absolutely amazing. What about the kids? I heard myself asking, though I already knew the answer. My voice sounded strange, distant. Caroline waved her hand dismissively, like she was brushing away a minor detail. "Oh, we're dropping them off at your place tomorrow morning before we head to the airport. You don't mind, right? It's just for a week. Just for a week." 7 days of 3 children in my tiny apartment while I was supposed to be skiing in the mountains with my friends, celebrating my first real vacation in years. The words hung in the air like a death sentence for my carefully planned trip. You didn't ask me, I said quietly, staring at her. You didn't ask if I could watch them, if I'm even available. Caroline actually laughed, a bright, careless sound that cut through me like broken glass. Charlotte, come on. You're always available. You work from home. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Always available. Because my life, my work, my plans, my dreams, none of it mattered to them. I was just the convenient sister who could be counted on to drop everything whenever they needed something. I looked around the table at my family. My parents were nodding along like this was completely normal behavior. Lisa was already chattering excitedly about what clothes to pack for tropical weather. The brothers-in-law were checking their phones, probably coordinating departure times. Nobody was looking at me. Nobody seemed to care that they just destroyed my carefully planned vacation without even asking. Something inside me cracked open. 30 years of being overlooked, dismissed, and taken for granted suddenly crystallized into a single, clarifying moment of rage. I put down my fork, my hands trembling slightly. No. The single word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. The cheerful chatter died instantly. Even the children in the living room seemed to sense the sudden tension, their laughter becoming more subdued. My mother was the first to break the silence. What do you mean, no? I mean no. I'm not available to babysit next week. Caroline's bright smile vanished completely, replaced by confusion and then rising anger. Charlotte, this is ridiculous. We've already booked everything, flights, hotel, everything. We can't just cancel now. That's your problem, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. You should have asked me first. Ask you? Lisa jumped in, her voice getting higher. Charlotte, you don't have anything else going on. You work from home. There it was again. That phrase that made my blood boil, that reduced my entire existence to something less than real, less than valuable. I have plans, I said firmly. My father finally spoke up, his voice carrying that familiar tone of judgment. What plans? You never go anywhere. The dismissal in his words was crushing. In their minds, I was just the spinster sister who sat at home all day, pretending to work, never doing anything important enough to matter. I have my own plans for the holidays, I repeated. Plans that don't involve babysitting. Caroline slammed her hand on the table, making the wine glasses jump. This is unbelievable. Do you realize you could ruin our entire vacation? We can't just cancel everything now. Why not? I asked, a new boldness in my voice. You made all these plans without talking to me first. Why is it my responsibility to fix your mistake? Because your family, my mother snapped, her voice sharp with frustration. Family helps each other. I almost laughed at the irony. Family helps each other? When had this family ever helped me? That's not fair, Lisa said, but her voice was shaky now. We've always been there for you. When? The question came out harder than I intended. When have you been there for me? When I needed help moving to my apartment? When I was stressed about starting my business? When I needed someone to talk to after my breakup with Austin? You were all too busy with your own lives. The truth hung heavy in the air. We all knew it was accurate. My father's face was getting red. Charlotte, you're being selfish. Your sisters work hard. They deserve a vacation. And I don't? The words tore out of me. I don't work hard. I don't deserve a vacation. It's not the same thing, he said dismissively. They have families to take care of. So because I was single, I didn't matter. Because I didn't have children, my time wasn't valuable. My dreams weren't important. That's not what we're saying, my mother protested, but I could see in her eyes that it was exactly what she meant. Lisa started crying then, real tears streaming down her face. Charlotte, please. We really need this trip. The kids love staying with you. The kids love staying with me because I let them do whatever they want while I try to work around them, I replied. Do you know how many times I've had to redo client projects because Cody spilled juice on my keyboard? Or because your children were fighting so loudly I couldn't concentrate during important phone calls? They're just kids, Caroline said defensively. Exactly. They're your kids. Not mine. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone was staring at me like I'd grown two heads, like I'd said something so shocking it couldn't be processed. I can't believe you're doing this, Caroline said quietly, her voice full of hurt and anger. After everything our family has done for you. What has this family done for me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tell me one thing. She couldn't answer. None of them could. You gave me hand-me-down clothes until I was 18, I continued, my voice getting stronger. You made me give half my paycheck to help Caroline's wedding when I was working part-time at 16. You ignore everything I say about my work and my life. You treat me like I'm your personal babysitting service. So tell me, what exactly has this family done for me? My mother's voice was getting higher, more desperate. We raised you. We fed you and clothed you. That's called being parents, I replied. That's what you're supposed to do for your children. Caroline stood up from the table abruptly. Fine. If that's how you feel, then maybe you shouldn't come to family events anymore. Maybe I shouldn't, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Charlotte, my mother warned, her voice sharp. Don't say things you'll regret. I'm not saying anything I'll regret. I'm saying I'm tired of being treated like hired help instead of family. You're ruining Christmas, Lisa sobbed. You're ruining everything. I'm not ruining anything, I said, standing up and grabbing my purse. I'm finally standing up for myself. This is ridiculous, Caroline said, her anger fully ignited now. We're not asking for much. It's 1 week. 1 week that I already have plans for. What plans? My mother demanded. Tell us what's so important that you can't help your family. I looked around the table one more time at all their faces. Caroline was furious, her jaw clenched tight. Lisa was sobbing like her world was ending. My mother looked like she was ready to explode with rage and disappointment. My father was shaking his head in that familiar gesture of disapproval I'd seen my entire life. These people didn't care about my plans. They didn't care about my life at all. They just wanted to know if whatever I was doing was important enough to inconvenience them. It doesn't matter what my plans are, I said finally. The point is that I have them, and you didn't bother to ask before making plans that involved me. So that's it? Caroline asked, her voice dripping with contempt. You're going to ruin our vacation because you're having some kind of temper tantrum? A temper tantrum. That's what she called me, finally standing up for myself after 30 years of being walked over. Charlotte, sit down, my father ordered, his voice carrying that authoritative tone that had controlled me my entire childhood. We're not done talking about this. Yes, we are, I said, walking toward the door. Charlotte, my mother called after me. If you walk out that door, don't expect us to welcome you back. I turned to look at them one final time. Good. Because I'm tired of being welcomed only when you need something from me. And with that, I walked out of my parents' house, got in my car, and drove home through the dark Christmas Eve streets, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The familiar landmarks blurred past as tears finally came, not tears of sadness, but of relief. For the first time in 30 years, I had chosen myself. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was already buzzing with missed calls and messages. I sat on my couch for a long time, still in shock that I'd actually done it. 30 years of being the good daughter, the reliable sister, the one who never caused problems, and I'd just blown it all up in one night. When I finally looked at my phone, the messages were exactly what I expected. 7 missed calls and a stream of texts that grew more angry and desperate with each one. Mom, your behavior tonight was unacceptable. Call me back immediately. Dad, Charlotte, you acted selfishly tonight. This isn't like you. Your mother's blood pressure is up because of this. Caroline, I can't believe you did this to us. You're being ungrateful and selfish. Thanks for ruining our Christmas. Lisa, I've been crying for an hour because of what you said. How could you be so mean to us? I stared at those messages, feeling a familiar stab of guilt. Even now, even after everything that had happened at dinner, they still didn't understand. They were angry at me for ruining their plans, not sorry for assuming they could make plans that involved me without asking. I turned my phone to silent and went to the kitchen. There was leftover pizza in the refrigerator, my sad Christmas Eve dinner. While I ate it alone in my quiet apartment, my family was probably back at the house, talking about what a terrible, ungrateful person I was. But for the first time in years, I didn't feel terrible about disappointing them. I woke up early Christmas morning with my ski clothes already laid out and my backpack packed. I'd been planning this trip for months, working extra hours, saving money, buying gear. I wasn't going to let them destroy it. Before I left for the mountains, I sat down and wrote that note. I wanted to make sure they understood this wasn't just about 1 week of babysitting. This was about years of being treated like my life didn't matter, like my dreams weren't worth considering. I told you I wasn't available to babysit this week, I wrote carefully. I'm at a ski resort in the mountains with my friends until next Sunday. I'm tired of being your reliable babysitter and free help whenever you need it. I'm done being treated like my life doesn't matter. From today forward, I'm cutting off all contact with this family. I taped it to the outside of my apartment door and left to meet Ashley, Amy, and Alex. You look different, Ashley said when I got in the car. Good different. I finally told my family what I really think about how they treat me, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. About time, Alex replied from the back seat. They've been walking all over you for years. The 2-hour drive to the mountains felt like the longest and shortest trip of my life. Long because I kept wondering if I'd made a huge mistake that would haunt me forever. Short because I was so excited to finally be doing something just for me, something that nobody else had planned or controlled. When we reached the resort and I checked into my room, I turned my phone back on. 53 missed calls. Dozens of messages. Even texts from Connor and Brian, my brothers-in-law, people who normally barely acknowledged my existence. I read through them while sitting on my hotel bed, and they were exactly what I expected. Anger, hurt, confusion, and demands that I return immediately. Not one single person apologized. Not one person acknowledged that maybe they'd been wrong to assume I was available. Not one person seemed to understand why I was upset in the first place. But the message that hit me hardest was from my father. Your nephews are standing outside your apartment door crying. They don't understand why Aunt Charlotte abandoned them. You should be ashamed of yourself. The image of the children crying outside my door was devastating. I felt a wave of guilt crash over me, nearly drowning me in doubt. I almost packed my bags right then to rush home to them. But then I realized something crucial. They had brought the kids to my apartment anyway. Even after I told them no. Even after I walked out of dinner. They still thought I was just throwing a tantrum and would come running back to babysit like I always did. I blocked all their numbers. For the first time in years, I had a week of complete peace. Ashley, Amy, Alex, and I skied every day. We ate at nice restaurants without anyone complaining about kid-friendly menus. We stayed up late talking about books, travel dreams, career goals, everything except family drama. I didn't have to worry about anyone else's schedule or needs or emergencies. It was the best vacation of my life. When I returned home the following Sunday, the building's concierge stopped me in the lobby. Miss Charlotte, he said carefully, your parents have been here several times this week asking if you'd returned yet. Your mother seemed very upset. I thanked him and went up to my apartment. The note was gone from my door. They'd definitely seen it. I felt guilty for about 5 minutes, thinking about my parents missing their Hawaii vacation to babysit. But then I reminded myself that they were the children's grandparents. Watching their own grandchildren for a week shouldn't have been a crisis. It should have been normal, even enjoyable. 2 days after New Year's, I heard familiar voices in the hallway outside my apartment. I looked through the peephole and saw them all there, Mom, Dad, Caroline, and Lisa, standing outside my door like some kind of intervention committee. I took a deep breath and opened the door. My mother was holding my note in her hand, waving it around like evidence in a criminal trial. How could you do this to us? She screamed before I could even say hello. You destroyed our vacation. Your father and I missed Hawaii because of your selfishness. They all started talking at once, a chorus of accusations calling me selfish, ungrateful, inconsiderate. The word arrogant kept coming up. Apparently, standing up for myself made me arrogant. I stood in my doorway and let them vent their frustration and anger. I let them get it all out, every hurt feeling and inconvenience I'd caused them. When they finally stopped shouting, I asked calmly, "Did you read the whole note?" They looked confused. The last sentence, I clarified. "Did you read it carefully?" I could see them thinking, remembering. I wrote that I was cutting off all contact with this family. The silence was deafening. You could see the realization hitting them one by one. I wasn't just angry about babysitting. I was done with all of them. "You don't mean that," my mother said, but her voice was smaller now, uncertain. "I do mean it. You don't see me as a family member. You see me as a convenient person to dump your responsibilities on. You see me as free labor, nothing more." "That's not true," Lisa protested, wiping her eyes. "We love you." "Really? When's the last time any of you called just to talk? When's the last time you invited me somewhere without needing me to watch children? When's the last time anyone in this family treated me like my opinions or feelings mattered?" They couldn't answer because we all knew the truth. "Charlotte, please," my mother said, and now she was crying too. "We're family. Family sticks together. Family respects each other," I replied. "Family asks before making plans that involve other people. Family doesn't treat one person like hired help." "I want you all to leave now," I said, pointing toward the elevator. "Charlotte, please," my mother started. "Leave. And don't come back." They stood there for another minute, looking shocked and lost, like children who couldn't understand why their favorite toy had suddenly broken. Finally, they turned and walked toward the elevator. My mother's sobs echoed in the hallway until the doors closed. Over the following weeks, relatives I barely talked to started calling me. All of them trying to convince me to make up with my family, to be the bigger person, to remember that blood is thicker than water. I didn't listen to their guilt trips. I hung up on every single one of them. 4 months passed. 4 months of peace, of living my life on my own terms. No unexpected babysitting requests, no family drama, no one treating me like my time didn't matter. I started feeling better about myself, more confident and self-assured. I took on bigger clients, raised my rates, even started dating again. Without the constant stress of family obligations, I had energy for my own life. Then I got an email from Caroline. A long, thoughtful email that was completely different from anything she'd ever sent me before. She wrote about how the whole family had been talking about what happened at Christmas, dissecting it at every family dinner since then. She admitted they'd realized they'd been wrong to ignore my feelings and take me for granted all these years. She said they'd been treating me unfairly, expecting me to always be available without ever asking what I wanted or needed. For the first time since this all started, someone in my family had actually apologized. Someone had actually acknowledged that they'd been wrong. I read that email 3 times, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Part of me missed them too, especially the children. Part of me wanted to believe they could change, that we could build something healthier together. But I also remembered how good these 4 months had been. How much better I felt about myself when I wasn't constantly being used and dismissed. I thought about it for 3 days before responding with a short, careful email. "I'm not ready for reconciliation yet. I need more time to figure out if I want you back in my life and, if so, what that would look like. When I'm ready, I'll contact you. Please don't contact me again until then. These days, I'm living my life on my own terms. I spend time with friends who actually care about me as a person. I date when I want to without feeling guilty about not being available for family emergencies. I take vacations without asking anyone's permission. I work with clients who respect my expertise and value my time. Do I miss my family sometimes? Yes, I do. Especially the children. But I don't miss feeling invisible. I don't miss being taken for granted. I don't miss being valued only for what I could do for other people instead of who I am as a person. Maybe someday we'll find a way back to each other. Maybe they'll learn to see me as more than just the convenient sister who's always available. Maybe I'll be ready to trust them with my heart again. Or maybe this is how our story ends, with me finally choosing myself, finally understanding that my life has value, that my dreams matter, that I deserve to be treated with respect and consideration. Either way, I'm at peace with my decision. For the first time in my life, I'm putting my own needs first. And it turns out, the world didn't end when I finally learned to say no. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others who might need permission to put themselves first, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your worth in a world that tries to define it for you. Sometimes the most difficult boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately set us free.